What if aging wasn't a slow decline, but a decision? Jay Campbell has spent the last 2 decades challenging everything we've been taught about vitality, performance, and what's possible for the human body. A former men's physique competitor turned global thought leader, Jay is a 4-time international best-selling author whose work on hormonal balance, therapeutic peptides, and metabolic optimization has transformed the lives of millions. But Jay's journey didn't begin with success. It began with frustration. He watched friends and peers deteriorate far too young. He saw an entire health system built on managing decline rather than restoring capability. And so he became the experiment, using his own biology as a laboratory for uncovering what truly keeps us strong, sharp, and sovereign. What emerged is a man who blends science with intuition, physiology with philosophy, someone who asks not just how we live longer, but why we've accepted limits that were never ours to keep. Jay Campbell isn't promising youth. He's questioning the narrative of aging itself. And once you hear how he got there, you may never look at your own health the same way again. And before we start the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth and the Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Bill, a graduate, who says, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program has transformed the KPIs we're using to accelerate growth and profits. Or how about Emery, who says, and I love this, and I quote, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program helped me create the right mindset for both growing my business and later my future exit. I now know what questions to ask, what to do and not to do, which is priceless. The team and I have found dangerous skeletons and gaps that we're now addressing due to the Deep Wealth Program. Today, our actions have a massive ROI. Absolutely love that. And now, speaking of growth and adding value, check out what Bruce says. And I quote, as a business owner, I'm always looking for new programs, systems, CEO peer groups, and strategies to improve my business. Hands down, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program is the absolute best. I'm both growing my business and preparing for a future exit at the same time. It doesn't get any better. And I got to tell you, as I hear these testimonials, this is exactly why I do what I do. My mission, the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, is to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time and one liquidity event at a time. The Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it's the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that we now call Deep Wealth Mastery, and that's exactly what helped myself and my business partners welcome from a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. So if you're interested in growing your profits, preparing for a future liquidity event, whether that's 3 years away or 33 years away, and if you want to optimize your post-exit life, Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. Please email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. We'll send you all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, otherwise known as the Scale for Ultimate Sales System. Better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll see where you are at your business and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you who are looking to create market disruptions. Whether you're a startup, whether you've been in business for 3 or 4 decades, whether you're manufacturing, whether you're high-tech, SaaS, low-tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners, with other businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. Again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. Well, Deep Wealth Nation, I love my rhetorical questions. You know that. Let me ask you this, Deep Wealth Nation, and be honest with me. Don't just give me the vague, yeah, everything's okay. Deep Wealth Nation, this morning, when you woke up, when you got out of bed, were you sharp? Were you clear? Did you have a spring in your step? Or do you have the brain fog where you're saying, oh man, I just feel another day older. How am I going to get through today? I don't have that energy like I used to. And sadly, for most entrepreneurs, for most people, it's the latter, not the former. They're, hey, where's my youth gone? What if all of that was a lie that you've been told? What if there's actually a better future, but it's been hiding from you? Do I have your attention now? I bet I do. Well, I'm going to put a plug in right there. We have a very special guest in the House of Deep Wealth. You heard the official introduction. We have a fellow entrepreneur, best-selling author, thought leader, a guy you can't see him, but I got to tell you, he is rocking it. Looks absolutely fantastic. We're going to hear all of his stories. So Jay, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. It really is a pleasure to have you with us. there's always a story behind the story. I know you got the story. So what's the story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
So first off, Jeffrey, thank you so much for having me. I'm always humbly honored and privileged to be on shows such as yourselves. So thank you. I do appreciate being here. My story, I'll give a very 100,000 foot version. Ex-college athlete, high school athlete, oldest of 9 children, playing basketball still very competitively at 29 years of age. I was kicked in the testicles. I checked out of the game, what happens when you get kicked in the balls. And about 8 weeks later, I started feeling completely run down and shot. At the time, I worked for the Los Angeles Times. I was living in Southern California, Pasadena, actually. And I went to a PPO provider. And in my world, I don't see anything like coincidences, only synchronicities. This guy happened to refer me to a Harvard trained endocrinologist by the name of Dr. Raymond Scruggs. And he took my labs and he said, "Hey, you have the testosterone levels of an 85-year-old geriatric. I can put you on therapeutic testosterone and have you right as rain in 8 weeks." Now, this is back in 1999. Jeffrey, fast forward to now, obviously I'll be 55 in 2 months. So this is going back a long time now, but he said, "Go home, talk to your fiance at the time." Shout out to my first wife, who was long gone at the time. She was my fiance at the time, but we decided to go on therapeutic testosterone. And once I did, as he said, 8 weeks later, I started to feel amazing. He wanted to withdraw me. And I was like, "Bro, there's absolutely no way you're taking me off this. This is like transformational. I feel like a different person." So from that point forward, I was about 30 and a half years old now. I just became this astute, deeply, evangelical person of like therapeutic hormones. At the same time that I was looking into therapeutic hormones, I worked with various doctors. I used different delivery systems. I was also biohacking, so to speak, if you want to call it back then. That wasn't even a word. But in the underground communities, I was using peptides. So I tell people this because in today's world, and fast forward to 2026 almost, most people know me as like the peptide guy. I speak all across the world on stages about peptides. But I was first known for using therapeutic hormones, and I wrote my first books on that, and I'll get to that in a second. But I was also using peptides. So when I tell people that I've been using therapeutic peptides for close to 23 years, I mean, they're kind of like in a marvel state because they're like, "Dude, I didn't even know what a peptide was till 6 months ago, a year ago, et cetera." So to make a very long story short, and I finally wrote my first book on therapeutic testosterone in 2014. It was published in 2015. And then subsequently, I've written 7 other books. My newest book, which is coming out at the end of this year, preferably or hopefully probably the first week of January, somewhere in between, is going to be a book on GLP peptides, which, as you know, and I'm sure most of your listening audience knows, is like all the rave right now. In fact, Lilly is now the biggest pharmaceutical giant in the history of the world because of their sales of GLP peptides. But I'm writing a book called Metabolic Awakening, and it basically goes into the history, what not to do, what everybody is doing wrong, and then how to use them correctly. And that's coming. But I've just been very blessed since I started writing books to meet amazing people, researchers, doctors, podcasters such as yourself, and take this message about, what I call optimized healthcare, in and around or above and through allopathic medicine, which I refer to as sick care. And so, here we are today talking about this stuff.
And Deep Wealth Nation, with what you just heard, I want you to go to the show notes. And in the show notes, it's all point and click. And what you'll see are Jay's book. I mean, listen to these titles. How's this one? Optimize your health with therapeutic peptides. Extend your life by becoming more muscular, leaner, smarter, injury-free, and younger. Who doesn't want that? Or 30 days to shreds. Reprogram your mind and metabolism to torch fat, sculpt muscle, and create your dream body in 30 days or less. Again, who wouldn't want that? And the list goes on. I can just spend the entire episode reading your titles of what you've done. Jay, let's go back to basics for a moment. Let's go back so we can go forward. Offline, you and I were talking, and I know in doing my research about what you're doing, there is a big lie that's been going on out there that we've been believing that, hey, those aches, those pains, that's normal. That's just how it's supposed to be. You can't sleep at night. Yeah, that's normal. As you age, that's just how it's supposed to be. Talk to us about this lie and what's actually going on. What should we really know?
Yeah, it's a great point. So I've been using therapeutic hormones, i.e. testosterone and various other things, desiccated thyroid, stuff for my pancreas, but basically just adjuvants that are available in the medical system. If you have a little bit of know-how to obviously completely regress my age. I have the biological age, depending on the company that I've tested with, of somewhere between 24 and 27. And like I said, I'll be 55 here in February. So I'm a couple months away from turning 55. As my father would say, I'll be in my 56th year around the sun. But my wife and I both literally practice what we preach. We live this lifestyle. We use all of these incredible adjuvants like therapeutic testosterone, like therapeutic peptides, like various supplements like bioregulators and small molecules, many of which my company, which is BioLongevity Labs, sells to the global public. And I think we are living proof, Jeffrey, that you do not have to age biologically. Yes, you have to age chronologically, as we all do. But at the end of the day, if you really take care of what I call the meat modem, which is your physical avatar body, you can really, really slow the process. And by using all these various adjuvants and living, the lifestyle, and obviously getting the foundational precepts dialed in, which I'll name very quickly. You have to do resistance training. You have to do cardiovascular training. You have to live what I call insulin controlled, which is regulating your carbohydrate consumption. You also have to get 6 to 8 hours of deep sleep. You have to mitigate EMF. There's a lot of things you have to get into, what I call earth, the grounding of earth. If you can get into the earth's energy every single morning, like I told you, I'm right now here in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And so I've been in the sand at 5:30, finishing my book every single morning as the sun comes up and grounding in the earth energy. But if you're doing all those things, and you're also optimizing your hormones, and you're using therapeutic peptides, and you're using therapeutic bioregulators, and you're using all these wonderful tools, which by the way are available to anyone. And obviously your audience is mostly sophisticated, and I would say mostly affluent. Maybe not everybody's affluent, but they're all hustling, grinding entrepreneur types like us. These products are readily available. And obviously my company, again, BioLongevity Labs, makes them readily available. But if you know how to use them, they really are the fountain of youth. They really will regress your biology and keep you living, as I say, longer and stronger.
Okay, terrific. So we have that as some basics there. Now, Jay, as we're talking about this, I can just imagine the Deep Wealth Nation, they're hearing us and they're saying, Jay, Jeffrey, yeah, I hear you. I barely have enough time for what I'm doing. I have no idea. Peptides, and you're talking about all these other chemicals. I mean, it sounds dangerous. Again, let's take it back to the basics. Is there some pattern going on here? What some people call Pareto's Law or the 80-20 principle? Yeah, Jeffrey, 20% of these challenges or issues, I really call them opportunities over here, that's affecting 80% of the population. And let's dial it in a little bit more. So for the typical entrepreneur, let's talk about what's probably going on with him or her, and then your journey, what you've learned along the way, and whether it's testosterone supplementation, even for women, we'll talk about that,
For
or
sure.
whatever else is going on, what they should know. And by the way, Deep Health Nation, everything that Jay and I are talking about today, it's our opinions only. We're simply two friends having a fireside chat here. Before you do anything, always check with a medical professional. This is not medical advice. So Jay, that said, are there some big picture patterns that you can share with us of what's typically happening with most entrepreneurs?
For sure. I mean, depending on where they live, most first world, large urban centers, what I call coastal population centers, you are facing a very contaminated environment, contaminated world, contaminated energy field from the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the electromagnetic frequencies that we're constantly around, even right now on this podcast. And when that happens, and again, it's really, you could argue it's just the modernization of society. Our endocrine systems are under siege. And when our endocrine systems are under siege, all of our hormonal systems really start to just say go haywire. I mean, as we age, men and women start lower, testosterone is a natural, it's a lowering of and cessating of our natural hormonal rhythms is obviously a natural biological process. But now due to the environmental contamination, it's a much faster and accelerated rate. So the first step for an entrepreneur is to make sure that they understand whether they're functioning with a hormone deficiency. And anyone, male or female, can go online now just as easy as they go to Amazon and they can get their labs done, and it's relatively cheap. I mean, I work with a company called Private MD Labs, but there's direct labs, there's discounted labs, there's all these different companies. And if you're a male, you want to get a male hormone panel. If you're a female, you want to get a female hormone panel. And once you get those lab works back, there's plenty of people, including myself, that do videos online that you can easily Google search, which will teach you, how to read them and how to diagnose if you have any issues. And most people, Jeffrey, today are dealing with a testosterone deficiency for all the reasons that I just mentioned. I mean, again, the environmental contamination. So if that's the situation that you're dealing with, from there, Once you recognize the problem, obviously situational awareness to your problem, you can then work with a physician who can prescribe you hormones, who can prescribe you, various medical adjuvants like peptides, like all these different things that I've already talked about that can get you to a place of balance. And obviously what I like to say, optimization, because we're all shooting for optimization. People like to say testosterone replacement, but I hate that word. I hate that actual, it's very cliche because we don't want to replace something that is cessating and lessening as we get older. We want to optimize the levels of it, right? So all of us can optimize our levels. And again, it doesn't matter your age, whether you're a 30-year-old hard charging entrepreneur, or a 75-year-old hard charging entrepreneur, everyone can benefit from optimizing the hormones. But once you are on that path, that's when you can then start looking at all these other things that I obviously like to talk about and the things that I use in my day-to-day life. But it's always the basic step one is understanding whether or not you're functioning with a hormone deficiency. And if you are, working to optimize.
Okay, so here we are. We're hearing you talk about this. And again, from Deep Health Nation's perspective, Jay, yeah, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. But before you tell me that, Jay, give me the reason why I even want to do this in the first place. So someone who has never done this before, they're following what some people call healthcare. You and I will call it sick care.
Right.
Going along, they're doing everything that they're told to do, but it's not the right thing to do. So when we start following your protocols, your journey, your recommendations, what you've done, the hard, heavy lifting for both figuratively and literally, what would they start to feel? What would they expect? Why should they start doing this?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I actually like to quantify this as when you start optimizing your hormones, again, regardless of your age, you will literally quantify your life as pre and post optimized hormones. It's that transformative. Imagine having better energy, better brain power, better vigorous, exercise and energy in the gym, obviously better sexual function, better erections. If you're a female, being able to maintain sexual libido into your 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, it literally is the difference between night and day. Almost 80%, and this is just my opinion based on what I understand, but 80% of men and women today in our American society in the West, call it Canada, who are over the age of 40 are literally functioning with a hormone deficiency and they don't even know it. And this is because our medical system does not teach physicians how to optimize hormones, because if they did, they would have much less of a cash cow in the pharmaceutical pathways, because obviously, again, as you already mentioned, sick care, illness medicine, which is allopathic medicine, they don't want people healthy, they want people sick. If you remember, I think it wasn't Eddie Murphy, it was Chris Rock. Chris Rock said, the money is in the medicine. The money is not in health. They don't want people healthy. So you have to learn all of this kind of stuff outside of that sandbox of allopathic sick care medicine. You have to learn to optimize on your own. But I mean, the question or the answer is very simply that once you optimize your hormones, you're functioning at a much higher level. And not enough entrepreneurs, unfortunately, know about this. But once you go down this path and you start seeking to optimize your hormones, the energy, the intensity, the intention, all the things that you're probably lacking right now because you're tired, you're stressed, you might have brain fog in the middle of the day, you just don't feel like you felt in your early 20s, you can gain back by optimizing your hormones.
And so why don't you take us back, Jay, to your journey and talk to us about really the first time that you started going down this path. And obviously you didn't have your whole system yet, but you started to see some progress. Was there a eureka moment of, yes, this is it? Or was it slowly, okay, step by step? Oh, looking back, wow, yeah, I didn't realize it. It just snuck up on me. I feel terrific. And speaking of feeling terrific, you're less than half your biological age,
Yeah,
which is
right.
absolutely incredible. So talk to us about that. Was there a eureka moment or how did it happen?
It's a good question. I don't think there was a eureka moment. I mean, I definitely know that when I went back to the physician after he put me on testosterone and he wanted to take me off, I knew that I wasn't going to come off because I felt absolutely amazing. I mean, my low back pain disappeared, my energy improved. Again, one of the things that hormones do is they optimize dopamine signaling in the brain. So you have more energy, you have more cognitive firepower, you're clearer thinking, your short-term memory improves. So those were the first like real needle movers when I did this. And then at that point I was like, wow, if I feel this good now, what else can I do to enhance the way I feel from this? And that's why I started looking at peptides and all these different things, call them again, early stage biohacking. I like to say, Jeffrey, you kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the show. in the late 90s and the early 2000s, the internet was still relatively in its infancy, but the signal to noise ratio was mostly signal and very little noise. You only had very smart people hobnobbing, so to speak, online in communities, sharing information. And again, the information was so high level. Whereas if you fast forward today, you've got a lot of noise and a very minimal signal. And it's very, very hard for people with so many voices and so much bad information, including AI, which is hallucinating online. It's really hard to find it. So it was a lot different then. And so obviously me being then and there, going through all these things, doing the research, experimenting on myself, I learned really fast. And then I also shared information, intel, resources with various people similar to me. So it was a lot easier, fortunately for me, at least that's what I think back then, than it is for people now, because the signal to noise ratio is mostly noise. But over time, as I started tinkering and biohacking on myself and playing around with various delivery systems with like therapeutic hormones, and then of course using and experimenting with peptides and bioregulators, I created this amazing physique. And so the people that were closest to me, I was still, just not an entrepreneur. I was what I call a high level wage slave in the digital automotive marketing world. Those guys who saw me and watched my physique transform and who were close to me, they would always tell me, you got to write a book on this. You really need to crowdsource this information. You must put this information to the world, because you know all this stuff and you look the part, and it's like there's so many people out there that can benefit from your knowledge. So initially, because again, this is, I'm not a trained medical professional. I didn't have medical credentials. I was kind of initially skeptical about writing a book on this because I didn't want to bring any kind of weird stuff down upon me. But after speaking with attorneys and also some people that were also involved in publishing, they told me I had to put this book out into the world. And so I would say from like 2009 to 2013 is really when I had my eureka moment of like, okay, I know this backwards and forwards. And now it's about taking it and making it in a collatable, understandable fashion, working with other physicians and other thought leaders on putting this information out into the world. And, very truthfully, both of my books that I wrote on testosterone, the first one came out in 2015, was the definitive TRT manual. And then my second, which is technically my magnum opus until I would say this new book coming out in January of this year, which was called the Testosterone Optimization Therapy Bible. They're still the number 1 and 2 selling books of all time on testosterone. In fact, a lot of people say that Jeff Bezos, used my first book to go from like, the little dorky guy who owned Amazon to the guy walking around with his shirt off on his yachts and stuff like that, because that book was like the number 1 book on men's health on Amazon in 2016 for like 6 months. And so a lot of people in my circle were like, oh yeah, Jeff read your book. And he went down that path and found a doctor and he optimized his hormones, and the rest is history. But I think that would be my eureka moment, is just like really learning from other amazing people who really understood this and teaching me. And then for me, it was like, okay, how do I take this and crowdsource this to the world so I can leave a legacy where people can read this information?
And what I love about your story, Jay, it is so typical entrepreneurial. You had a very personal problem. You looked into it. You found the solution. Now, I'm making this sound easy. I'm making this sound quick. I know it wasn't. It was not a straight line. It was zigs and zags, 5 steps
Definitely.
forward, 10 steps back. But you now have a system. I don't want to oversimplify it, and I don't want to confuse simple with simplicity. When I was doing the research and looking into what you're doing, generally speaking, it looks like it's peptides, fat loss, and testosterone for both men and women. And I know Deep Health Nation, all the women in Deep Health Nation, when I say testosterone, I don't want you to say, oh yeah, no, that's not for me. That's just for men. Hey, I've got a quick news update. A news flash is for women as well. So peptides, fat loss, testosterone, that seems to be the cornerstone of your system. Why don't you walk us through each of those areas? What would you want us to know, and start wherever you want to start with the peptides, fat loss, or testosterone?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Jeffrey, because I love talking about this. So I have a private membership group that has close to 800 people in it now, and it's monetized. It's a monthly cost or either quarterly cost or a yearly cost. But I have over 500 women in the group, and I have 285 men. I attract more women in my infrastructure and communities and circles now than I do men, because I've spoken, very obviously, I've been very outspoken and spent a lot of time in teaching and educating that women definitely need testosterone just as much. In fact, my first mentor in this hormone space, which was again that Harvard trained endocrinologist, his quote was, giving a woman hormones is like giving a dry plant water. And so I've known that, and it's very true, by the way. If you give a 40-year-old woman plus 40 and old, 40, 50, 60s, and even older, a very micro dose of therapeutic testosterone, you will see a transformation unlike anything else. And let me just say this, and this is very interesting. By the way, there's lots of studies on therapeutic testosterone in both men and women. It's more men than women in the studies. But when you give a person optimized therapeutic microdoses of testosterone and then you optimize their hormones, they become very tactical and strategic in their behaviors in life. And this is actually the opposite of what most people think. So what you see with women, you're going to laugh at this, but it's true. And for the ladies listening to this, you actually become more logical and less emotional in your behaviors, which who doesn't want that, especially for women who are obviously very reactionary and very emotional until they obviously learn to control that. And that's kind of the path of all humans as we evolve is, learning to not react emotionally and be much more strategic and much more tactical in how we use logic and reason to do things. I mean, emotion plays a part. We don't want to suppress how we feel, but at the same time, we want to react in a way that is obviously positively and productively in society. And so I see so many women who, when they optimize their hormones, they become so much more productive citizens. They become so much less reactionary, so much less emotional. But to just keep going and deeper and talk about peptides, hormones are the foundation. People who start with peptides, and many of them do, unfortunately, especially GLPs, right? Like the average person today, that's their exposure to peptides. They go to their doc, they've got 20 pounds to lose, 40 pounds to lose. Some people are heavier, they have insulin dysregulation, they're insulin resistant, et cetera. And the doc puts them on a GLP. That's a major misstep, Jeffrey, because if their hormones aren't optimized, which as I told you, 80% of people don't have optimized hormones and they start on a GLP, they're going to have muscle loss, they're going to have side effects, thyroid damage, metabolic damage, et cetera. And then you see all the people in the mainstream news that complain about GLPs being the devil and that, they have Wegovy face, Wegovy neck, Wegovy butt, all these different things. They have muscle collapse. If you optimize your hormones and then get on a GLP, none of that happens. So it's the first step is always, let's look into optimize our hormones. Then let's think about getting on a GLP peptide. And again, just really quick, a GLP peptide, you've got stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 coming. And all of these things are amazing, amazing products. In fact, I like to say that GLP peptides are the greatest interventions in the history of pharmaceutical science. It's just not enough people yet understand how to use them productively. And that's obviously one of the reasons I'm putting my book out into the world in about less than a month and a half now, but maybe 7 weeks. And again, it's called Metabolic Awakening with GLPs. And I know that it's going to help millions and millions of people because it really is the first book teaching people how to use these things therapeutically and within the context of health and longevity. It's hormones first. It's then getting on peptides. We could go much deeper and I could talk to you about all the various peptides that improve cognition, peptides that improve mitochondrial power, peptides that improve healing, peptides that improve immunity, peptides that enhance longevity and anti-aging. There's lots of classifications of peptides, but I think from a very overview and a simplistic version, get your hormones optimized. If you have fat to lose, then get on a GLP peptide. And the likelihood that if you do it correctly now, using a surgically precise dose of a GLP with hormonal optimization, the likelihood that you have side effects or fail is so small that it's almost theoretically impossible. But again, very few people go down that path. They do it the opposite.
And Deep Health Nation, I know what you're thinking as Jay's talking about this. Jay sounds way too complicated. But Deep Health Nation, let me ask you this. Do you understand your taxes? Are you doing it yourself or do you go to your accountants? Or when it comes to your tax planning, are you doing that yourself or your wealth planning? Of course not. You're going to different advisors. So one food for thought, Deep Health Nation, is number one, hey, if you want to tinker around and do this on your own, okay, get the professional medical advice, as we said, and try it. But like so many other entrepreneurs, you don't have to figure out the how. Jay has already done that. He's done the masterclass. He's the expert, and he can walk you through this. And Jay, I don't want to assume, it sounds as though if I can get the peptides right, if I get the testosterone and the hormones, the fat loss is going to be taken care of itself, as will a lot of the other kinds of things that are coming into this, and that the dose makes the poison, as they say, and that timing is everything. So big picture wise, I'm going to ask an unfair question. I'm going to ask it anyways, because you're going to say, well, Jeffrey, every person is different and where they are in their journey. Generally speaking, though, I'm coming to you and I'm like the typical American. I'm on that SAD diet,
Standard American
standard
diet.
American diet, the SAD diet. I mean, whoever picked that acronym, what were they thinking?
So awesome.
There's some full transparency, whether they realize it or not. I'm on the SAD diet. I'm seeing my doctor once a year. They give me 7 minutes for my annual physical. They're telling me everything is great, even though all the levels have changed because I'm going to be politically incorrect. People are fat and they're more out of shape. So everything has changed for the worse, not the better. But according to my doctor, everything sounds good. It's really not. So I'm going to come to you roughly. How long does this take? What can I expect, generally speaking, very high level?
Great question. Best question you could possibly ask. And you, by the way, you're asking awesome questions. I really, really appreciate your studious nature of this because I don't get these kind of questions all the time. I do a lot of podcasts, so you're really awesome in your preparation. So I'm grateful at that. So thank you. It is an awesome question. You really can't rely on your quote unquote insurance subrogated doctor, your family doctor, your PPO doctor, your HMO doctor, however you want to classify it, to do this kind of stuff. Because you just said it, they're not trained in this. They do not teach physicians in medical school how to optimize hormones, how to use therapeutic peptides, et cetera. I always tell people this, like the best thing you could do is if you went to your family doctor in the middle of the year, you called them up and say, hey, I need to see you. Like you said, you might get 7 minutes, but you would say, hey, doc, I'm here because I want you to optimize me. I want you to make me younger biologically. I want you to help me lose fat. They would literally look at you like you were insane. What's the matter with you? Are you sick? How can I help you? They don't understand optimization. They don't understand wellness or health. It's sick care. Just as you understand that, you cannot use them to do these things that I'm talking about. So you have to go outside of your insurance subrogation and you have to find a specialist. And again, all of the best people, and there are thankfully in America, plenty of them, do not accept insurance. It's cash pay. You know, it's not super expensive. I mean, the majority of people in your listening audience can afford this. You know, people ask me, well, Jay, what does it cost? And it's anywhere from $250 to $1,000 a month to completely revolutionize your health, to optimize your hormones, to get on therapeutic peptides, to use various bioregulators and small molecules to lose fat, to be healthier, to feel better, to have stronger cognition. I always tell people this, you have to get your priorities from a standpoint of if you cannot afford somewhere between $5,000 and again, I'll just say $20,000 a year on your personal health care, you have your priorities inverted. Because Jeffrey, I could pull out all sorts of actuary tables and I could show you the cost of having one heart attack, the cost of having type 2 diabetes. I mean, people literally go into medical bankruptcy from having a major thrombotic event, which would be, again, a heart attack or a myocardial infarction, like a stroke or an embolism, because it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills to intervene, and none of them ever optimize you. They just save you. So if you look at this from an actual proactive versus a reactive situation, this is absolutely mandatory because you do not want to be a 50-year-old plus guy or woman going to the doctor, having that event that is either life or death. I mean, and again, life or death, they're saving your life and all of a sudden going to hit you with a $500,000 to $750,000 medical bill, which a lot of people unfortunately cannot pay for or don't want to pay for. So it's the difference between being proactive and being reactive. And obviously listening to people like me, listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman, listening to various other entities out there who can guide you on the path of finding the right functional, what I call functional health and wellness physicians or providers, will save you lots of money and obviously plenty of time to get you on the path to not having that physician or not having that obviously massive life intervening event at some point in your life. Because like I said, I mean, statistically, I don't remember what it was, but I've seen that I think the majority of people who suffer that one giant traumatic event, whether it's again a heart attack, an embolism or stroke, they face medical bankruptcy in like 65 to 67% of the time. So this is what people have to start looking at is instead of being reactive to when it happens, be proactive so that it never happens.
Absolutely. And Jay, this may be a news story for you, for Deep Wealth Nation. It isn't. I've shared this a few times. I was speaking with a billionaire with a B, incredibly successful in every aspect of business that you can imagine and then some. And this billionaire was on the deathbed and we were talking and the billionaire said to me, Jeffrey, I would happily trade in every dollar I had to get my health back.
That's right.
Because I know where this end game is going. It's not a good one. I'm not going to be with my family, my children, my loved ones. Ask me about a meeting I had a month ago or 10 years ago. I don't even remember it, but I do remember what I did to my health. And if I could change
Exactly.
things, I would. And so, Deep Wealth Nation, as we're talking about this and you're hearing Jay put some time and some numbers and some dollars around this, you know what? You're already spending it anyways. It's pay me now or pay me
Exactly.
later. And it's
Exactly.
actually not a cost, it's an investment. If I invest in my health today, well, God willing, I'll be around for my family members. And if I have children, hopefully their grandchildren, their great grandchildren, and beyond. And not just there, I want to be able to pick them up, go on trips with them, walk around with them, all those wonderful things that life is supposed to be. So, Jay, am I on base, off base with that? I would love some of your thoughts on that.
No, you're 100% accurate. And I want to share even more. And, God bless my dad who said this to me when I was 9 years old. And of course, I was too young and naive and not consciously aware enough to understand how profound this message was. But my dad said to me when I was 9 years old that a man only has two things in their life: they have their health and they have their integrity. And without one, they have neither. Now, think about what you just said and how he said that. And that is absolutely the truth. I've had billionaires also come to me and, people worth nine figures and that much more. And they're in absolutely horrible health, right? They hustled, they built their empire, they built their business, they exited, and now they're 1 foot in the grave. And they come to me and they say, dude, they pay me a lot of money and they say, I need you to give me a 90-day plan. And I literally look in their face and say, are you on drugs?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to become this metabolic emergency that you are right now? There's no 90-day plan that is going to unwind the damage that you have done to yourself over the last 3, perhaps 4 decades. We can take steps, but you have to be realistic in your expectations. So I think what you said is 100% right. I know for a fact that health is our wealth. There is nothing more important than health. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money, how many material things, how great your company is, how fast you scale, how many amazing people you've hired. If you can't get out of bed in the morning without a horrific, agonizing pain, it's all for naught. And so it's like, my wife also has a really good quote that I use and steal. She says, most people don't care about their health until it's gone. And it's like, you can't live your life from that perspective because you're right. I mean, you don't have a life. I mean, like you said, that billionaire told you straight up, he goes, I wish that I would give he probably, in his mind, he probably was like, I would give every cent away to be able to walk upright without pain. Because most people who are metabolic, I call them dumpster fires, that's my trade name, but metabolic emergencies in the middle of their life, they would give it all back, Jeffrey. Because, let's just say this for a second, because a lot of people don't really understand this. I mean, obviously the people that are living this do, but when you're an obese person, you are actually having a metabolic fire in your body 24/7. You have cytokine storms firing through cellular cascades in your body, and you feel like absolute dog, you know what. When you're like that, it's horrible. Your default state is suffering. So no one wants to feel like that. And I always say this because I'm very compassionate about this, because my mom was morbidly obese and she died of COVID, but she really died because she was not in good condition in her life. But I have massive empathy and compassion for people like that, because I don't think most people understand how much they're suffering. And so it's like, I always stop and do as much as I possibly can to help people that are in that metabolic condition, because I really want to see them do better. And obviously a lot of society gives up on them. They see people like that in society and you're just like, this is a fat person, get out of my way. But we shouldn't be like that. We have to be much more compassionate, much more empathetic with folks like that, because they have gotten into that way. They feel like it's hopeless. Believe me, I understand. And so I really do go out of my way in my educational resources and in my just day-to-day life to try to help those people whenever I possibly can, because it's a very, very difficult existence for them.
Absolutely. And the truth is, Jay, for us to do a deep dive on what you're doing, that is not an episode. That is a series. That would be many series. There is so much of what's there. Let me try and do my best for Deep Wealth Nation in the limited time that we have. And we're going to look at it from a glass half empty, glass half full. And so big picture wise, again, generally speaking, maybe it's the 80-20 rule. Maybe it's 95-5. Yes, 5% of these issues, what I otherwise call opportunities, are affecting 95% of the population. Generally speaking, where are most people, and in this case, entrepreneurs like you, me, and Deep Wealth Nation, what are we doing wrong? What are we missing that we don't even know because we've just been given the wrong advice? If there's one thing that we could stop doing or start doing right now that would have us stop going down this dumpster fire, as you're talking about it,
Yeah.
and start getting more towards health and feeling better, reducing the inflammation, the pain, what's one thing that you'd want me to know to, hey, stop or start this?
You already said it, the standard American diet. The standard American diet is now global. I mean, I'm in Mexico right now and it's the same thing. I mean, we have outsourced overeating and supersizing and all of that stuff. I mean, people for the most part overconsume food. One of my good friends at run the Mind Pump podcast, because of the engineering of food, the
Mhm.
hyper palatability of food, all these companies and these high agro corporations, they spend literally billions of dollars every year on engineering the food so that the sensitivity to our taste buds makes people overconsume it. That's how they make money. That's how, fill their profit and loss sheets, by just making people overconsume. It's called hyperpalatability of food. So if we can just become conscious of that, and we can start living insulin controlled. And again, living insulin controlled means regulating the amount of carbohydrates that you eat. Some of my mentors used to teach me that the most important thing to understand about nutrition is to become and remain metabolically flexible. What does that actually mean? It means that you should be consuming food, protein, fats, and carbohydrates relative to the energy demand of your lifestyle. And let me explain that. For somebody who lifts weights, you cannot not eat carbohydrates because your body requires carbohydrates to replenish glycogen, which you are depleting when you lift weights. For people that train for ultra endurance, Ironmans type of events, those people probably can get by with eating a ketogenic or a low carb diet because they can actually run on fats, right? Which are ketones. So if you understand all that and you take all that combined and you understand your lifestyle, your type of training, again, I call it energetic demand, you can then design your nutrition around that lifestyle. So you don't have to be so rigid that you're like a keto or a carnivore or low carb, where you can actually say, okay, depending on what I'm doing this weekend or today and my energy demand, I can eat whatever is relevant to how I am going to be fueled. So for me, for example, I have a diet where I fast and I also control my carbohydrate consumption so that I'm eating my carbs around my workouts, before my workouts, right after my workouts. And I never overconsume carbs because, again, carbs are not the devil, as a lot of people have been led to believe. And they're also, you shouldn't be phobic of carbs. We need carbs, but we always want to be kind of surgically precise in when we consume carbs. And so, again, if you're someone who's very sedentary and you're not lifting weights, which you should be, but obviously very, like you said, most people are fat, most people are not exercising, they're not going to the gym, they're not lifting weights, then you should be by nature not consuming a lot of carbohydrates, because that carbohydrate consumption is going to increase insulin production, which is going to ram fat into your cells and make you, again, insulin resistant and on the border or on the path to becoming a type 2 diabetic. So I think the simple answer is, before we go down the hormone path, before we start using peptides and all these amazing supplements, we have to understand our nutrition. We have to understand that we should be fueling our body relative to what we do every day. Again, energetic demand, and understanding that that's going to control how we look and feel. And from there, then we can obviously go a little bit more esoteric and deeper and do the things that I recommend, which is, again, hormones and peptides and supplementation. But nutrition is obviously always the biggest key.
Absolutely. So nutrition and the timing of nutrition, you're talking about fasting. Again, those are rabbit holes that we can go down perhaps another time. Those are entire series.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, though, before we start going into wrap up mode. And it's a question perhaps I should have put at the very beginning, the very front. We talk about peptides, and we hear a lot about that now with the GLP-1 and other kinds of
Yep.
things. From a very high level, for the typical person or the typical entrepreneur who isn't into the medical or the biohacking or tech or anything else, what is a peptide? What does it mean? What does it do? What would you want us to know about a peptide?
Yeah, so peptides are basically short chains of amino acids. They're organic signaling molecules. They're actually made in the human body. For example, a peptide outside of GLPs that many people are probably familiar with on the show is BPC 157, which stands for body protective compound. It's actually a peptide found in human gastric juice, and it speeds the rate of healing when it's injected or intranasally absorbed or even transdermally absorbed or even orally swallowed, because it increases what is known as angiogenesis, which is the increase in red blood cell tissue. So when you take BPC 157, if you have a sprained ankle, a sprained elbow, a sprained knee, mild sprain or tendinous issue, you can actually inject BPC 157 with a 31 or 32 gauge insulin needle, which again is a microdermic type of needle that diabetics take to inject insulin, which you won't feel, it doesn't hurt. And it massively accelerates the rate of healing. In fact, it's 7 to 10 times normal rate. So then take that peptide and understand that there are peptides for everything, for cognition. Obviously, we just talked about healing, for muscle gain, for fat loss, for longevity, for fertility, for sexual function. There's literally every biological system and organ system in the body. There's a representative peptide and bioregulator that works on not only improving the maintenance function as we get older, but also optimizing it depending on the dosage and what we combine it with. So they're really amazing molecules. They really are what I call golden age agents. And as more and more people become familiar with them, and obviously I'm one of the people in the world leading the charge and teaching people how to use them, it's going to damage the sick care medical system, because the one thing I would want you, Jeffrey, to know, and obviously your audience to know, is that peptides and bioregulators, and for the most part, small molecules, which are the newer things coming into the marketplace, they actually fundamentally address and treat the root cause of illness, disease, and dysregulation. So it's like, if you can use an agent that overcomes the actual symptomology versus allopathic medicines, call them, petroleum distillate meds that actually break down in the body and cause symptoms and side effects, you wouldn't need all these various interventions that allopathic medicine gives you, again, which are various pills and then pills to alleviate the side effects of the pills you're taking. You don't have side effects with peptides. They really do treat the fundamental root cause. So again, for example, if you have a sprain, you can actually heal the sprain. You're not taking a Band-Aid medication like a painkiller or something like that, which is, the typical allopathic medication. So I think the biggest picture to understand about peptides is that they're signaling molecules, they're short chains or long chains of amino acids. And when you use them, depending on the delivery system, they can address and completely heal the fundamental root cause.
And Deep Nation, my takeaway from this, and Jay, you can say, Jeffrey, on base, off base, with a peptide, you can think of it as it's from nature, the universe,
Exactly.
God, whatever you'd like to say. And they are smart, these peptides. They go where the body needs it, not where it doesn't need it. And they know what to do to repair and do whatever they have to do, these peptides, to make us feel better or take us from here to over there, and there being vitality and sovereign health and all those other good things. So Jay, again, we can go down that rabbit hole a whole other time. As we head into wrap-up mode, one other quick question for what we've been talking about today. Is there a question I haven't yet asked, or a topic, a theme, a message that we haven't covered yet that you want to share with Deep Health Nation before we go into wrap-up mode?
No, man, I think you've done an amazing job. I mean, you've asked really, really intelligent questions. I mean, wrap-up mode would just be adding in that, I own an amazing company called BioLongevity Labs. We launched last year in August, and we've exploded. We really like to consider ourselves the Amazon for biohackers, because we sell every potential bleeding age peptide, bioregulator, and small molecule. And all of them are proven in studies and also empirical research and data of people using them to dramatically improve people's health as they age. So I would just want to say, please go to biolongevitylabs.com, and you can use the coupon code JAYC, or I can give you a coupon code and people can save 15% off their purchase.
Absolutely love that. Actually, we're going to circle back to that. So Jay, as we quickly wrap things up here, it's a tradition here on the Deep Health Podcast. It's my honor, my privilege. Every guest, I ask the same question. It's a fun question. Let me set this up for you. When you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that magical DeLorean car that's going to take you back to any point in time. So Jay, here's the fun part. Tomorrow morning, you look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car curbside, the door is open, is waiting for you to hop on in. What you do, you're now going to go back to any point in your life. Jay, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what would you tell yourself in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, Jay, do this, but don't do that. What would it sound like?
The first time I would say 1.21 gigawatts. Why? The only thing that could generate that would be a bolt of lightning. That's like literally like one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite actors. Honestly, my life, I've been so blessed. I really don't even know the answer to that. I would probably want to go back to my 20s to attempt to do a better job of intervening in my mom, who started eating and losing control and spiraling because I didn't, in my opinion, do enough. But that would be the one thing that I would probably do if I wanted to go back in time. But honestly, I don't see myself as going back in time. I have an amazing life, a blessed life. I'm serving so many people every single day. I feel so grateful that I get a chance to talk to people like you about this kind of stuff, because I really, honestly, you said it earlier and I'll say it again, it is a blue ocean healing. I call this quantum healing. We are moving from allopathic sick care medicine to teaching people how, as you said, to become sovereign, empowered, and free with their personal health care. And I am leading the charge. So I'm just a blessed man that I get a chance to talk about this kind of stuff every single day.
Absolutely love that. And before it's an official wrap, Jay, very quickly, someone in Deep Health Nation, they want to speak with you. They want to do some coaching. They want you to maybe speak to their organization, or they want to have a conversation. Where would be the best place online to find you?
For sure. So my website is jaycampbell.com. It is a massive website with a treasure trove of free information on all the things that we talked about today. I have over 100 articles that are on page one. Some of them are rank one on peptides, on bioregulators, on small molecules, on the things that you talked about, hormones, fat loss, fasting, autophagy, hormesis, all of that stuff. I also have a domain that I have dedicated for all the listeners and viewers of these podcasts, which is jcampbell.com/free-info. On that site, every single one of my books that I've written, which not the one that hasn't been published yet, Metabolic Awakening, but all the other books are available for free as a downloadable PDF. So please go there and get information. It also has access to my greatest and latest podcasts. And then I would also just say you can find me on social media at jcampbell333. And then if you want to purchase any of these amazing products, go to biolongevitylabs.com. And of course, use the coupon JAYC for 15% off.
And Deep Wealth Nation doesn't get any better. It's a point and click. Just go there. It's all there for you. Well, Jay, it's official. This is a wrap. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribe, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank. It's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.